So the Javett Art Centre at the University of Pretoria is inviting members of the public to embark on a cultural pilgrimage this Heritage Day, and that's free of charge. So the gallery has curated spaces for the public to discover and engage with the art and cultural heritage of Africa, featuring a number of significant works which include the Anglo Gold Ashanti Collection as well as the Mapungubwe Gold Collection. There's certainly no shortage of marvels to behold. So here to explain what's on offer on this occasion of the Javett Art Centre's second year anniversary, as well as the Heritage Day event in some respects, is Curator Gabi Ngcobo, as well as Senior Manager Elroy. To both our guests, good morning. Thanks so much for making the trip to our studio. It's great to have you with us. I'm not quite sure where to start. Let's define what we even mean by a heritage pilgrimage. I mean, every time I hear of pilgrimage, I think of parishioners going through a journey with the Lord in some respects. Elroy?
I think it's important to realize that we've got so much accessible culture and heritage that are in the Javett Art Centre of the University of Pretoria is all under one roof. And we're trying to create a space where people from across the country can access all of this and make a trip to Pretoria and come visit the Javett Art Centre and experience that. And it's important to realize that heritage is not only about one day or 1 month.
Right.
It's available and accessible throughout the year.
Sure. And Gabi, I mean, curating is something I really respect for people who are brave enough to do it. And that's because in a country like ours, there is just so much to pick from. How do you decide what stays and goes?
It's a long process, and it does involve research. I have been in the industry for many years, so also that experience counts. At the Javett UP, we take care of collections. So we have the Mapungubwe collection, for example, the Anglo Gold Ashanti Collection, but also there's collections of contemporary art. Also of artists who are no longer with us, such as Gerald Sekoto. So curating is also about taking care of that heritage and putting it into context. It's historical material most of the time, and I guess my role as a curator is to bring that historical material into the present for people, for young people, for people of all ages to be able to access. So it's about creating different access points for people who come from different backgrounds, so that they feel that they've been spoken to and respected and challenged, of course.
You've answered my next question in some parts. I mean, when you're curating the content, the art itself, is there any specific person you have in mind? Because I'm sure trying to capture the imagination of the entire spectrum of people is a mammoth task, if not an impossible one.
Yeah, I mean, we have exhibitions, and like I said, we do try to create access points. We have public programs that are connected to our curatorial projects, as well as public engagement projects. And through these programs, we are able to open little doors where people of different age groups, but also people of different experiences. We are based at the University of Pretoria, so there's a large student and young people student body, and we want to be relevant for them as well, as well as academics, as well as people who might not, have experienced the language of art before. So through our educational programs and public engagement programs, we're able to open little doors so that everybody can relate.
Speaking of opening doors, Elroy, I mean, what was the genesis of the centre in a context where we are seeing many other iconic sites around the country, quite frankly, struggling to keep their doors open?
So the Javett Art Centre at the University of Pretoria was established as a site that was going to be transdisciplinary and an arts education site that could be accessible and bridge sort of communities. And it's actually it's indicative of the way the building is constructed, because our gallery is built onto a bridge and forms part of a bridge. So it's quite it's meaningful in that way as well. So it's trying to fill that space of making art accessible and making art not feel like it's set in an ivory tower. And these public programs that Gabi is referring to are wonderfully curated. I don't think she's giving herself enough credit because they create these wonderful access points that engage and have dialogue with the exhibitions. So, for example, today we're having a documentary screening called Afrikaans, which was created by Dylan Valley.
Yes.
And it's a wonderful documentary that's award-winning, and it speaks about the Creole history of Afrikaans. And it engages so wonderfully with one of our long exhibitions by Willem Boshoff. It's his retrospective called Word Woes or Woordwoes. And in that exhibition, he deals a lot with the intersections of language and how language can be interpreted and the fact that language is not static, it evolves. And Afrikaans is such a wonderful intersecting point around that and understanding who owns this language, who owns this culture, and how does it evolve over time.
Sure. And it's interesting because I'm not quite sure how many people even follow, for instance, the discourse around language and culture and how they intersect, right? I mean, are you finding that sometimes that's where the gaps lie? Like, you almost need to kind of explain why the art in and of itself is important before people can start appreciating its displays in its many forms?
You're correct, and curatorial practice is about, it's a vernacular in itself. So it's a kind of language and a visual language that we use to show different perspectives of the world, and for people to kind of understand also where they come from, and to be able to reimagine a different kind of future than the one that was, designed for us, especially as Africans.
Right.
So, for example, today we have a curatorial dialogue, which is different to a walkabout. So I will be part of that dialogue, which means the people who are coming to that dialogue are participating in the curatorial process. So the curatorial process is never closed. It's there to open up a discussion. So that dialogue, so we will have prompts for people so that they have a kind of ownership, and also they can create their own narrative around what is already there. So that for us is very important.
Sure. And Elroy, I mean, if we discuss accessibility, I mean, it's part of the points that you've made just a short while ago. I mean, how are you trying to improve that for something like this? Because, for better or for worse, I found that the part of the pitfalls is that art becomes something that's seen as a highbrow exercise, right? Like there are people who just won't be bothered by art because they've got other issues. But sometimes it's only because people find that it's inaccessible. They can't really relate to it, let alone access the spaces where the art is being displayed.
I think it's important to understand those intersecting points. So, for example, this last week, the Constitutional Court made a judgment around Afrikaans being a medium of instruction at UNISA.
Correct.
And I think the Javett Art Centre at UP is a wonderful point to have that debate, particularly around the Willem Boshoff exhibition or Handle with Care, which is the other exhibition that's also on, where you can understand, okay, what is this language? What is our assumption around this language? What has changed? And how can we engage with it in a new and interesting manner? So those points of debate that are cross-disciplinary, I suppose, are very important, and we access that in our center as well. So it's not only art for art lovers, it's art as a way to, as an impetus for these discussions, as an impetus for these debates that are cross-cutting.
Absolutely. Very quickly, Elroy, how do people get plugged in?
So you can follow us on our Instagram and our Facebook. The Instagram is at JavettUP. Our website, where we're also having digital programs in light of COVID, is javettup.art. So our program today is starting at 11 with the curatorial dialogue, and then we have the film screening for Afrikaans starting at 1. And then tomorrow we also have a choir performance by Jaco Meyer, and that's engaging with the Willem Boshoff exhibition, and that's starting at about 3:30. So it's free today on Heritage Day, and then normal ticket prices tomorrow.
All right. I actually think this is all of public interest. So Thanks very much indeed for coming through and helping us, I guess in some respects, even start thinking about different aspects of our culture and ways through which we can live it meaningfully on our day-to-day basis. Elroy Bell is the Senior Manager at the Javett Art Centre at the University of Pretoria, and joining us was also Gabi, who is a curator of that centre. To both our guests, once again, thanks very much indeed.